My name is Darren Joseph from HTJ.tax, and we're the team that seeks to demystify the sometimes confusing world of international tax. And today we have the honor and privilege of having another conversation with Mark. Mark, could you introduce yourself?
I'm an advisor to the entire financial industry on CRS, FATCA, and CARF, and I've advised the OECD and the EU Parliament and the EU Commission and the German government, etc. All this is on my website for anybody to look at.
Fantastic. What happens if someone receives a FATCA letter from a financial institution? We touched on it because it is a confusing space. At first, it was just FATCA, but now I guess the financial institutions try to ask, they have a more generic questionnaire that asks, where are you tax resident? And then provide the tax identification number for each jurisdiction in which you are tax resident, and the details of the ultimate beneficial owner if it's an institution, and so on. What have you been seeing with these letters or these requests coming from financial institutions?
These letters mostly to do just checking what type of financial institution you are and if you're really a financial institution. I'm an administrator of a custodial institution. Once every few years, the bank asks to see the financials of the custodial institution to prove that it meets the income test. Say more than 20% of the fees were custody related. There are also all those other forms that it's going to ask you for, the W-8s, etc. But you'll fill in the due diligence on day one, and you're going to get more questions afterwards as another team does the compliance, etc. And clients are going to be asking you, which W-8 form do I fill in, etc.
Exactly. And you know, for you, it's every few years, but I have clients telling me that the banks are asking them every single year. And it is a burden. And it is because, and again, unless you have a dedicated compliance department as a company, if you're a small or medium-sized company, or if you're an individual account holder, it can be a nightmare to navigate. And the best bet really is to get advice, which often is not free, from someone for whom this is an area of specialty. And this doesn't apply to all tax practitioners. For example, as a US tax practitioner myself, I know that like 90% of those who practice US domestic tax will have no clue on the intricacies of FATCA. They've never heard of CRS or CARF. And even those that are practiced internationally, again, they may be familiar with FATCA, but definitely nothing to do with CRS, nothing to do with CARF. And financial institutions, as they, from a compliance point of view, that compliance team, in order to gather the data, they don't necessarily have three different questionnaires. They integrate all three areas of compliance, FATCA, CRS, and CARF, into one questionnaire. And then they'll ask the client a series of questions, which has quite extensive implications. If they get anything wrong, it could be subject to withholding when it shouldn't be, or they could avoid withholding, illegally be avoiding withholding when it should apply because they answered something incorrectly. All I can tell anyone that looks at this is that you should get advice, because as you pointed out, the legislation, the CRS, this stuff is being updated not even once a year, but perhaps more frequently sometimes. And to stay on top of it is definitely a full-time job. It's best to get advice from a team that knows what they're doing. Reach out to you.
The Swiss banks are very intrusive if a client is a US person, intrusive in the private matters of the client, because they suffered billions of penalties. As you said, they're going to be 100% sure of what is being stated is true, double checked, etc.
And this is a point that you raised when you started off this topic, that these financial institutions have been basically recruited by the tax authorities and act on behalf of the tax authorities now from a compliance point of view, deputy sheriffs. That's why they're being so intrusive. And I've seen the emails from that clients get, it's pretty lengthy, or when they're asked to do a call or they're asked to come in, that so-called interview can easily take 1 or 2 hours. They ask all the relatives, the kids, the situation, spouse, families, spouse, and is anyone politically exposed? It's just compliance, banks or financial institutions appear to be compliance led as opposed to profit led as they may have been historically. It's just something to be aware of. And with that, Mark, thank you very much for the pleasure of your company and sharing your insights. And if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way to find you?
The best way is just to go to my website, which is co-ownershiptrust.com.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.